What if everything you believe about engine oil has been engineered to benefit everyone except you? What if every recommendation, every standard, every premium synthetic label is part of a giant system meant to keep engines wearing down faster, repairs flowing in, and your wallet permanently leaking? Most drivers think oil is simple: pour, drive, repeat. But the truth is more twisted. And once you learn how deep the game goes, you'll never look at a bottle the same way again. Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Two cars can sit side by side at the shop. Same model, same year, same driver habits, same oil brand. And one engine will quietly survive past 350,000 miles, while the other begins coughing itself to death before it ever hits 120,000. People shrug and call it luck. Mechanics call it wear and tear. But what actually caused the difference? It wasn't luck. It wasn't your driving. It wasn't even the brand of oil. The real answer is buried behind marketing, loopholes, and quiet industry practices that almost no one talks about publicly. That ends today, because the moment you understand what's really happening inside your engine, you stop being the customer who pays for failures and start being the owner who prevents them completely. Let's start with the first and most destructive illusion: the full synthetic lie. The entire industry relies on your assumption that full synthetic means the same thing everywhere. Most people imagine sophisticated laboratories, engineers in white coats, and molecules engineered from scratch. But that fantasy was shattered years ago when a legal decision quietly allowed oil companies to sell highly refined crude oil as full synthetic. It wasn't innovation. It wasn't new technology. It was a loophole. One that let mineral oil disguise itself as synthetic simply because it was processed more thoroughly. And that loophole is still alive today. This means millions of drivers are pouring synthetic oil into their engines, thinking they're giving their car the best possible protection, when in reality, they're getting oil that is molecularly inconsistent, less heat-resistant, and more prone to leaving carbon deposits behind. Lab-built oils, true PAO and ester base stocks, are chemically engineered to be uniform, stable, and thermally resilient. Fake synthetics? They're just polished crude oil wearing an expensive label. And here's something car owners never hear. Genuine synthetics don't just handle heat better, they reduce internal friction so effectively that the difference can be measured in engine cleanliness, cold start behavior, and long-term wear patterns. Fake synthetics can look identical to the untrained eye, but when you pull apart a high-mileage engine that has run real PAO or ester oils, the difference is dramatic. The internals look cleaner, the rings stay sharper, the bearings retain their coating longer, deposits barely exist. When your oil is real, your engine stays real. But let's get brutally direct here. If oil brands were honest, half of them would be out of business tomorrow. Because the base oil is only the beginning. The real magic, or destruction, comes from additives. Most drivers don't even realize additives exist, yet they represent up to 25% of the oil's total volume. They're the anti-wear agents, detergents, dispersants, antioxidants, friction modifiers, and corrosion fighters that actually determine whether your engine thrives or suffers. But there's a massive catch. Modern emission standards restrict several high-performance additives because they may reduce catalytic converter lifespan. And in response, many mainstream oils weaken their formulas to comply. This means millions of engines are underprotected every single day. Not because the technology doesn't exist, but because regulations force the industry to dial back what used to be normal. Meanwhile, European oils and racing blends aren't bound by the same restrictions. They still contain higher levels of crucial protective compounds like ZDDP and molybdenum. These are the chemicals that prevent metal-on-metal contact under the crushing force of a running engine. They are what stand between smooth operation and irreversible wear. But most drivers never benefit from them because their oil brands simply can't include them at meaningful levels. If you ever wondered why older European cars, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, often hit absurd mileage numbers when properly maintained, this is one of the main reasons. Their oil standards never compromised on protection, even when emissions laws tightened. They simply designed better catalytic systems instead of weakening oil. And that brings us to one of the most profitable deceptions in the auto industry: viscosity manipulation. Manufacturers recommend ultra-thin oils like 0W16 and 0W20, not because they're better for your engine, but because they reduce friction just enough to improve fuel economy test results. Those government efficiency numbers you see on stickers, they aren't measured with thick protective oils. They're measured with watery formulas optimized for test conditions, not real-world heat, loads, or aging. This means your engine runs thinner oil than it actually needs, simply so the manufacturer can claim better fuel economy on paper. But here's the part they don't advertise. Ultra-thin oils shear down quickly. They lose viscosity under stress, especially in turbocharged engines. Once your oil shears, the protective film between metal components becomes dangerously thin. This is why many engines start burning oil around 60,000 to 90,000 miles. It's not age. It's not driving style. It's the slow erosion caused by thin, overworked oil. You want to know the real mechanic's secret? After your warranty expires, many experienced technicians quietly recommend stepping up a grade. A 5W30 or 5W40 in a car that originally used 0W20 can drastically improve protection, especially in hot climates, high-load driving, or vehicles with heavy mileage. But you'll never hear a manufacturer officially recommend this, because admitting it would reveal the entire fuel economy game. But perhaps the most dangerous habit modern drivers have adopted comes from the extended oil interval myth. Manufacturers claim synthetic oil can last 10,000 to 15,000 miles, and technically, the oil itself might, but your engine can't. Contaminants from combustion, moisture, fuel dilution, and microscopic metal wear accumulate at a rate that filters cannot fully manage. Every cold start dumps raw fuel droplets down the cylinder walls. Every short trip fails to evaporate moisture. Every idle contributes soot. These are things the oil simply absorbs until it becomes saturated. The result? By the time 10,000 miles pass, your oil is chemically exhausted, not in lubrication, but in purity. The contaminated suspended in the oil start behaving like liquid sandpaper, quietly eroding rings, bearings, cylinder walls, and timing components. Independent lab studies repeatedly show that engines running high-mile intervals have significantly higher wear metals compared to engines serviced at 5,000-mile intervals. In other words, your oil might survive 10,000 miles, but your engine won't. And nowhere is this destructive timeline more brutal than inside a turbocharger. Modern turbos operate at extreme temperatures and spin at speeds up to 200,000 RPM. When you finish aggressive driving or long highway pulls, your turbo is glowing hot. If you shut the engine off immediately, oil stops circulating. Whatever oil remains in the turbo instantly begins cooking into hard carbon. This carbon clogs oil passages, damages bearings, and silently shortens the turbo's lifespan. This is why turbo failures often seem random. They are not. They are the result of thousands of tiny thermal assaults caused by premature shutdowns. Want to extend your turbo's life dramatically? Just let the engine idle for a minute after hard driving. That simple habit cools the turbo gradually, prevents coking, and saves you from a repair that can cost thousands. But even all of these efforts become worthless if you ignore one of the most underrated components in your entire maintenance routine, the oil filter. Synthetic oil flows quickly, carries microscopic contaminants, and operates under extreme conditions. A cheap filter cannot keep up. Low-grade filters only catch large debris, letting fine particles repeatedly circulate through the engine. Over time, these particles scratch surfaces, clog lifters, and accelerate wear. A high-quality filter traps nearly all harmful particles, stabilizes oil flow, and protects the engine far more effectively than most drivers realize. A cheap filter is not a bargain. It's a hidden tax on your engine's future. Now let's talk about the blueprint, the system that real engine builders follow. Not dealerships, not quick lube shops, not marketing teams. People who actually understand engine metallurgy rise beyond trends and stick to fundamentals. They use real synthetic oil made from PAO or Ester. They change it at 5,000-mile intervals. They replace filters every time. They warm their engines gently. They cool their turbos patiently. They step up viscosity when the engine ages. They monitor oil health annually through lab tests. And because of these habits, Their engines routinely pass 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 miles without major repairs. Engines don't die from mileage. They die from neglect disguised as recommendations. This industry thrives on your ignorance, not because people are stupid, but because honest information is buried under marketing, regulations, and profit-driven shortcuts. Oil is the lifeblood of your engine, but most drivers treat it like a chore instead of a science. Your car's future isn't determined by luck. It's determined by knowledge. The more you understand, the less you pay. The more you control, the longer your engine survives. And now that you know the truth, now that you understand the illusions, the shortcuts, the manipulated standards, the hidden weaknesses, the question isn't whether your car can last 500,000 miles. It absolutely can. The real question is, will you keep trusting the sticker on your windshield, or will you take control of your engine's destiny? If this opened your eyes, hit the like button and subscribe to Brilliant Car Care.